Hello and welcome to GESS Indonesia 2020. I'm absolutely delighted and honored to be here and to talk to you about building mental toughness and resilience and well-being in education. My name is Gilda Scarfe. I'm the CEO and founder of Positive Ed. We are a global educational research consultancy, and we are looking at a way of improving students' life and equipping them with the right tools and strategies to become the architects of their own success. I will start with a quote from Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist, a logoped, and a Holocaust survivor who stated that when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And it goes without saying that we live in a very dynamic, turbulent and unpredictable world, and few countries have escaped unscathed from COVID-19, and most psychologists and researchers predict that students around the globe will face ongoing uncertainties and challenges for years to come. So now more than ever, we need to invest in supporting young people's mental health, well-being, resilience and mental toughness, and we really need to give them the right tools to thrive and succeed in life. Because as parents and educators, we really want our young people to be happy, to be successful, to become good citizens, and most importantly, to have a drive and aspiration to succeed, but also to look after their own well-being. Now, traditional psychology has always been something which I loved. I always like to understand human behavior, why we do things the way how we do. But one side of the normal traditional psychology is the fact that it's always looking at fixing people and diagnosing, looking at the diagnostics and treating people with mental health problems and psychopathological issues. So I take them in a sense from -5 to 0. But there's a new form of psychology who has emerged, and this is called positive psychology. I'm sure some of you have heard the word positive psychology before, but positive psychology has been described in many ways, in many words. But commonly accepted definition is positive psychology is the scientific study of what makes life worth living. Now, to push this brief description a little bit further, I would like to say that positive psychology is a scientific approach to study human thoughts and behavior and feelings with a focus on strength instead of weaknesses, building the good life instead, and repaying the bad, and taking the lives of average people up to great instead of focusing solely on moving those who are struggling up to normal. And there is a misconception about positive psychology that is all about being positive, and this is really inherently wrong. It is about flourishing. It is about being optimistic. And being optimistic is not being naive or in denial of reality. Optimism is the belief that the future is positive and we will get through this together. So, Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, created a model which is called PERMA, which is a widely recognized and influential model in positive psychology. And he proposed this model to explain and define well-being in a deeper and greater depth. So PERMA, it's an acronym for 5 facets of well-being. And the first one is positive emotion. As human beings, we need to be able to feel good. We need to be able to feel hopeful and inspired by the things we do, the life we lead. It is easy to see how when we do, we can allow ourselves, our positive emotion to take the lead in our life. And positive emotion help us in a very diverse way as well, because including being better to be able to tackle negative thoughts or negative emotions, being able to reframe these negative thoughts. Because for positive emotion to be able to support us, we first need to ensure that our basic needs are met. And even though seeking positive emotions alone is not a very effective way to boost well-being, without a doubt, it's an important factor. E is for engagement. I love engagement because obviously, especially for our students, what is the worst thing for a teacher is for having a child in a classroom who's disengaged, who is not engaging either with the people around or the subject, and becomes very disruptive or becomes very isolated. So engagement is sometimes also referred to as flow. It is the process of being fully immersed into the activities and duties or tasks which we fill our lives with. So not only are we engaged, but we also find a reliable source of passion and motivation and commitment to do these things. And when this is the case, we can find that we can draw energy from it, and you never get tired. If you do something with a lot of passion and you engage, time flies by and you really don't feel exhausted, you actually feel energized. So having a sense of engagement in which we may lose track of time, become completely absorbed in what we do, it's an important piece of well-being. And it's hard to have developed a sense of well-being if you're not truly engaged into anything you do. R is for relationships. Relationships are a crucial part of our well-being and our mental health and our happiness, because ultimately human beings are social animals. We like to interact with others. We want to have a deep and meaningful relationship with others because that is conducive to our own well-being. M is for meaning. And meaning, it's about building a sense of purpose in life and using that purpose to contribute to community, to the people around you, to your family, in the best way possible. Because meaning is more than just what you do. It also includes the ideas and the beliefs you hold. Even someone who is deliriously happy most of the time may not have developed a sense of well-being if they don't find meaning in life. So when we dedicate our lives to a cause or recognize something bigger than ourselves, we experience a sense of meaning that there is simply no replacement for it. And A is for achievement. Now, achievement is not just about a strong sense of winning or success as such. It refers to how much we challenge ourselves and what is the realistic sense of progress that we do and we want in our lives. Finding achievement in these ways, again, helps us to encourage further positive emotions such as confidence and adds to our continued sense of happiness and well-being. And Seligman has also advised that within each of the 5 elements, 3 characteristics need to be understood and met. And these are all elements are equally important to each other. Each element needs to contribute to overall happiness and well-being, and each element needs to be measured and considered independently from others. So this is the flourishing framework. And the reason why I wanted to introduce you to this is because it, for me, is the precursor of mental toughness. So you need to have this well established first in order to build the mental toughness. But before I actually give you the definition of mental toughness, I want to close this chapter about positive psychology with something which I feel is very, very important, is sometimes overlooked, is choosing where to focus your attention. And I don't want to talk only about the pandemic. I want to talk about any challenges, uncertainties, or ambiguity you might find in your life, or your students might find in their life. It's learning how to focus on the things you can control and being grateful for the things you have. We call this benefit finding, and is a key resilience skill. So, what is mental toughness and why we need it? Now, mental toughness, I got involved in mental toughness research because I was an avid lover of rugby, and especially All Blacks in New Zealand. And I was fascinated about the way how they went through from failure to failure to eventually go from success to success. And I wanted to find out if these skills are as important or transferable in education system. So to give you the definition of what mental toughness is in terms of research, is a personality trait which determines in large part of how people deal with challenges, stresses and pressure, irrespective of the circumstances. But what is more important is that this mental toughness, it's a universal, transferable and applicable in many parts of life. But why is it important? Right, mental toughness has been proven to be directly related to performance. 25%, up to 25% of the variation of individual performance. So obviously, when we look at athletes or sportsmen, we look at their performance and we know what they do well. The second one is behavior. We get more engaged, more positive, more I can do attitude, and you'll see the connection when I'll show you the framework for the mental toughness in terms of self-efficacy. But also the well-being. We are more content, but also we are able to learn how to deal with stresses and pressures, and we learn how to label our emotion and regulate those emotions as well. Aspiration, we become more ambitious, prepared to manage more risk. We seek challenges, we normalize challenges, so we don't see that the failure is going to stop us in our track. Engagement, it's more likely to stay focused and on task, and this takes me now to the model which I have developed over a 5-year longitudinal study in schools. I created this, I started initially with looking at the first framework which was done in terms of mental toughness, the 4 C's: commitment, control, challenge and confidence. And then I realized that there are some elements which I felt that being in school all the time, I realized that they are more important. And I will start with self-efficacy. So it's called the Scarfe model, and again it's an acronym just like PERMA. And S stands for self-efficacy, C stands for commitment, A for attitude, R for resilience, F for focus, and E for emotional regulation. But before I go through each individual element of the framework, I just want you to think about the people. I'm sure at one point in your life you might have met some people who are incredibly successful. And I think we can all agree that no matter your ambition, achieving success can be quite difficult. And over time, the daily grind can take its toll on the physical, mental, and emotional state. So achievers and high performers from all walks of life face those kind of challenges and ups and downs along their path all the time. And they face failure, they face burnout, they face discouragement, fatigue, self-limited beliefs, stress, and so much more. But how do some people continuously thrive towards their personal goal? What makes them stand apart? What is it? What skills they have developed in order to become successful, but also to have a good level of well-being? Because again, I'm going to refer a little bit to the sports psychology. We know that mental toughness, same like I said about positive psychology, that is inherently wrong when it's thinking it's just about being positive. Mental toughness is exactly the opposite. Consider that it's something which is very macho or loud or arrogant or push through the pain. But in actual fact, mental toughness is a lot about mental sensitivity and being able to regulate these emotions. But it has to start with self-efficacy, reflecting what is the confidence in your ability to succeed, that belief that actually you can do, you have a goal, but you're not going to stop until you become successful. So I think self-efficacy for me in terms of education as well, it's really, really important, because you as teacher will always have a child who always puts a barrier, says, I'm not good at maths, or I'm not good at English. And it's really hard to take these barriers down, because it comes from inside. So that kind of intrinsic belief that they can't do something, it's very damaging to their success and well-being as well. So for me, the first part I wanted to develop in students is that element of self-efficacy. Believe that no matter what, you can do things if you put enough effort, if you learn different ways, if the context, you understand the context, and you seek support when you don't know, or you reframe certain things. So self-efficacy, I think, is the core element to build mental toughness. And this takes me to the second letter, which is C, which is for commitment. Now, how many times in life you have chosen a goal? You have dedicated yourself and you made a plan, but then you didn't stick to it. Well, I can put my hands up that I still am one of this person which I keep thinking, saying to myself that I am going to go to the gym and I'm going to do this twice a week, and regularly I'm going to go and fulfill that goal which I set up for myself. Well, I can tell you that I start with the best intention for a week or two, and then I find all the excuses under the sun. I haven't got time, it's too cold outside. I will find an excuse, not a reason. And then I'll revert, and then I'll be angry with myself because I feel like I let myself down. So I'm sure you all recognize yourself a little bit into this. So being able to commit yourself to a goal, you need to break it down. And once you break that down and you plow through these uncertainties and challenges, whatever it is, and you stick with it, doesn't matter how many times you fail, you keep going through it. That commitment on top of self-efficacy, it's going to build you that mental toughness, and it's going to give you that get going as much as possible. The third letter is A, for attitude. Now, without a positive mindset, whatever your goal is, it's not achievable, because you will find a lot of obstacles, a lot of barriers. Your students will find a lot of barriers. They will be scared at times about exams, about not being studying enough. Whatever that is, if the attitude towards it, it's very negative, then their emotions are running high, their beliefs in themselves is running low, and the behavior towards that particular goal, whatever it is, it's not going to happen. So we need to build that kind of mindset. And I'm not saying about growth mindset, I'm just saying a positive, an optimistic mindset that if I commit myself to do something, then I will do it, and no matter what. Then we have resilience. Now, resilience is often defined as a function of emotional regulation and commitment. And I like that, because first you need to learn to label your emotion, then you need to learn how to regulate your emotions, and then you need to commit to do that. And resilience for me is very buoyant. It's just bouncing back and forth. And there is a lot of there is a phrase which psychologists use in terms of resilience and mental toughness. Is it the same? It isn't. Now, I can tell you that most resilient people are not mentally tough, but all mentally tough people are resilient, because resilience is very dynamic. You react to a situation and you bounce back. Now, mental toughness is bringing you that kind of challenge, that you're not scared of it, you're not scared of failure, you're not scared to seek that opportunity, you just push through. But without resilience, mental toughness cannot coexist. So in a sense, resilience represents that ability to deal with that adverse situation. And no matter what, you still go through it, whatever you set out to be. Now, mental toughness broadens this concept by adding two components, the self-efficacy and the attitude, which I introduced you beforehand. Focus. Focus is very important. Now, there is a difference between focus and attention. We tend as educators or psychologists to kind of say, well, you're not attentive to what you do. Why is your focus? Why are you distracted? Now, being on task, it's a very, it's quite hard to achieve. And that's partly because our brains are not really geared up to deal with focus more about it 20-25 minutes at one time. Then we need a brain breaker. So focus is very important, but in order to be focused on task, you have to have motivation, you have to have that want, that goal which you set up for yourself or your students set up for themselves. They need to push through that. They need to focus on the task. And when I said to you about breaking the habits down, that's exactly what it is. Breaking into small chunks, keeping focused, being committed, and having a positive mindset. And obviously the holy grail, emotional regulation. I think the ability we have as human beings to regulate the emotions and the experiences we face, I think is very important because they are conducive to our well-being, but also we need to be very flexible and tolerable. But most importantly, in order to regulate our emotions, we need to understand them. We need to be able to label the emotion. Students need to be able to have that emotional literacy of being able to articulate the emotion, label it, and then being able to find strategies to go through and regulate that emotion. And in terms of reaction, because we know that if we don't regulate our emotions, our reactions are going to be quite negative, and it's going to be very detrimental to our well-being and to our success, because reacting to something you are exposed to, you don't actually make a decision which is rational, or you understand it. Now, other influential factors in building mental toughness, it's of course challenge, being able to embrace that change and accept the risk without the fear of failure. And this is very, very important because in education we talk a lot about failing forward. Don't be scared of failing. As parents we do that, but actually in practice we don't allow students or children to fail. And if they do, because our expectation is quite high, we are admonishing them and then they lose their confidence. So we really need to be able to build that and normalize challenges and make them want more, build that curiosity to seek those opportunities. The other one is motivation, and I am a great believer that motivation has to come from within. Finding your why and meaning and purpose. But the why can only come from curiosity. Build curiosity in students. Give them a platform to ask questions. It's not about the answer, it's always about the question. That builds intrinsic motivation and it makes them want to conquer the world. And last but not last, it's communication. Being able to communicate your thoughts, your feelings, and your knowledge as well, it's very important. Speaking and hearing effectively, it's very, very important because when we instruct students or children to do certain things in terms of teaching, we expect them to follow suit. But the reality is that sometimes certain kids don't hear the same message. Somehow that gets a little bit diluted. So being able to speak clearly and always ask the question in such a way that the students reflect and ask more questions. So in a summary, this is the Scarfe model, and I think from my point of view, the last 5 years of the longitudinal study has proven, well, no, I shouldn't use the word proven because psychologists don't like to use that as research done. It showed so much promise. Students go more engaged, they have more self-belief, but also they have this increased aspiration to be the best they can. And when I say the best they can, the best version of themselves. So how do we measure mental toughness and what can you do about it? Right, we have developed the flourishing mental toughness scale, and it's a normative, it's a valid and reliable measure, and it can be online. But the reason why we used this scale is because we want to have a baseline. We want to be able to look at students and individuals where they are at that point before any intervention is put in place. And that is very important because in order to develop mental toughness, we need to look at the whole model and we need to make sure that it's complete. We need to have a great understanding about the structure of it and how to assess. It's very important because obviously if you see progress in a student, through the evaluation, then you know that you're going in the right direction. And if you don't, then you need to tweak things in the way how your intervention in your school works. Also, we need to look at the problem areas. And I said to you before, with positive psychology, looking at strengths, not weaknesses. When I say about looking at problem areas, it's about more like students being able, or individuals being able to articulate through the baseline, through the measurement, and where they think they are at that point, what they need to be improved, how that needs to be improved. And obviously we have intervention, which the ability to direct intervention better and to select appropriate intervention, the scale gives you that. That measure gives you a really good indication where that student is at. And obviously with the ability to measure change related to action. But also, what are the attributes of successful students? Now we know that how you measure success in students. Is it based on grades? Is it based on how much they work in a classroom? Is it based on the skills gained, or is it a combination of both? Now, from my point of view, a successful student who has a really strong mental toughness, holds a positive attitude, is self-motivated, shows effective engagement, has resilience, shows self-belief, and is determined to success. But most importantly, he's not scared of failing. But also, he has realistic expectation. Sometimes we put a lot of pressure on the students. They need to learn to accept certain things about themselves. Now, everything is changeable, but when you have a student who beats himself up for failing on something, that's not conducive to learning. They need to push forward by actually starting with realistic expectation. And then we need to give them encouragement of the effort and also look at the way how they learn. Learning styles are very important. And I'm not referring, because I know that the education is kind of separated. Some people believe in learning styles, some people don't. I don't necessarily believe that you have a certain learning style, but you have one who is a bit more relevant to you. So if students know, and also if students develop metacognition, understanding the learning, why they learn, how they learn, I think it's going to build that inner confidence. Also learning from disappointment, and most important, apply the learning. So the supporting factor into building mental toughness is being happy, feeling inspired, having good relationship with other people, feeling supported and connected, and most importantly, feeling secure. Because when students feel safe and secure, they will tell you what the problem is, and then you will be able to work together with them to solve that problem. So building mental toughness falls into 7 broad areas. One is the positive attitude. We build affirmation, thinking 3 positive things when we go to bed, thinking about what we've done well today, and reframing negative thoughts into positive ones to be conducive to our learning. Another one is visualization and self-talk, guided imaging, creating a narrative, because the story we tell ourselves, sometimes it's the worst story or could be the best story. So being able to create a guiding image about your success or your goal or your student's goal is very important. Emotional control, that starts with mindfulness, relaxation techniques, and again, transforming ants versus pets, automatic negative thoughts into automatic positive thoughts. Awareness control, focusing deals, and dealing with interruption and challenges. Goal setting. Now, I believe that goal setting is very important, but before we set the goals, we need to create habits. We try to create micro habits, meaning finding your strength and purpose in doing good. You start feeling good. A little bit more positive thinking. It's an underlying principle. It is we are what we think. So we need to have more of a positive attitude towards our thinking. Visualization, I already said that. We can imagine our success and we can imagine our failure. We can learn from that. And anxiety and control. Now, this is a psychological response as fear and worry have psychological consequences. So if we learn how to control that anxiety and being able to determine the difference between good anxiety and bad anxiety, I think we are on a way of building that mental toughness. Goal setting, I already said that, giving the meaning and direction and being able to focus the energy in the right direction in a very constructive way and planned way is very, very important. And obviously a sustained attention and concentration will enable students and ourselves to work much better for longer. Of course, commitment and focus and attitude, which we already discussed, it's really important because you need to be able to level the pressure when you are under pressure. You need to be able to control that in the best possible way. So I'm going to leave you with another quote from Viktor Frankl, which I absolutely love. It's between the stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our responses. In our responses lie our growth and our freedom. And that is very, very important because that small space which we have there, that determines the way how we move forward. Also, I'd like to give you some handy tips. Incorporate positive emotion as much as you possibly can with your students and with yourself. Increase your awareness and focus on your actions, not on the feelings, because the feelings are fleeting and temporarily, and use the mental rehearsal and visual imagery. Now, as I said to you, I gave you the quote from Viktor Frankl. I'm going to give you my own quote about what mental toughness is. And your mental toughness is equally made of persistence, commitment, and motivation. And remember, the toughest opponent of all is the one inside your head. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed. If you have any questions or if you want any follow-up from this session, please email me and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.